Okay, so the pattern is in multiples of 6, right? 5 knit stitches plus 1 purl stitch. So I chained 12 plus the extra 3 stitches. And now I'm going to pick up a loop in each stitch. So I'm going to start with the second chain on my hook, because remember, the first stitch counts as our first loop. Okay. And when I get to the end, I'm going to return pass. Now, you will have picked up stitches on your ribbing, but since this is just a tutorial, I don't have the ribbing, but the stitches are still the same. And my last stitch is a bit tight. Okay, so now let's return pass, which is chain 1, yarn over, pull through 2, all the way down. Okay, so like the pattern states, the stitch pattern is 1 purl stitch and 5 Tunisian knit stitches. But we are going to begin increasing right from the beginning. So before we even begin our stitch pattern of the purl stitch and Tunisian knit stitches, we have to place a full stitch. And to place a full stitch is just a stitch that's going in between, like that space right here where you see my finger poking through, that space in between right there. That's it. So take your hook, insert into the space between the first stitch and the next stitch, and pull up a loop, and we just increased. Okay, so now we need to purl stitch and knit stitch all the way down. So I'm going to purl stitch. And if this is too fast for you, you can check out the beginner's tutorial that I linked. And then knit stitch 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, purl stitch again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, purl stitch again, and then again we're going to have to increase on the opposite side, so at the end. So after our last purl stitch and our ending stitch, we need to find that space where my finger's poking through, insert your hook, and pull up a loop for a full stitch. And now our ending stitch, let's find, it's always hardest on the first row, but let's find our V right here, here, and insert your hook in there. Okay, great. And now you're going to return pass just like normal. So chain 1, and we're going to pull through 2 loops. So we just return past into the full stitch, 2 loops again, purl stitch, 2 loops all the way down. And here's our full stitch, right? So all we do is yarn over, pull through 2. Make sure you don't miss it. Sometimes it can be a little difficult to see, but just know you must have a full stitch at the end. Then yarn over, pull through 2. Okay, great. That was row 1. Now we're going to continue to increase. So again, we're going to have to place a full stitch between the first stitch and the full stitch from the previous row. So if you need to, put your fingers on there and pull it apart, and you can like stick your finger through to see where you need to insert your hook. So make a full stitch. Good. Okay, great. That was row 1. Now we're going to continue to increase. So again, and now we have to keep in mind the actual pattern. So we have our purl stitch here and all of the knit stitches, right? So we know that this is going to have to be a knit stitch because we don't want 2 purl stitches together. So we are going to just knit stitch into the full stitch, And it's very simple. You just insert your hook in between the two V's like you would normally for a knit stitch. And purl stitch, and then continue the pattern all the way down. Okay. Okay, we've come to our last purl stitch from the previous row, and we have come to our full stitch. So as we know, based on the pattern, we need a knit stitch. And again, we have to increase on both sides because that makes it even. So take your full stitch from the previous row and your ending stitch, pull it apart if you need to, and see where your finger is. Insert your hook, pull up a loop. And now do your normal ending stitch and return pass as normal. Now let's begin row 3. So we're going to do the same thing. Take your first stitch and that full stitch from the previous row, pull it apart, find that space, and we're going to make a full stitch. Okay, and again, we have to keep the pattern in mind. So we have this knit stitch here, so this must be a knit stitch because we need 5 knit stitches, then a purl stitch. So on my sweater, I'm not exactly sure, but I think my end on each side of my sweater only has like 3 increases. So I only have 3 knit stitches, I believe, or maybe 4 increases. But I'll show you what it will look like. Okay, now we have our 2 knit stitches that we must do, keeping with the pattern, or the stitch pattern. And again, we have to full stitch into this space before the ending stitch. And we're good. So then return pass. Now I'm gonna go ahead and I'm going to finish several rows. Oh dear. So you can take a look at what it will look like if you have to keep increasing after row 3. So hang tight and I will show you what that will look like so you can continue crocheting. Okay, so I've increased for 6 rows and this is what it's starting to look like. This is where we started and you can see it's increasing with all of these knit stitches, right? Okay, so let's count how many knit stitches I have. So this is a full stitch from the previous row. Then I have 1, 2, 3, 4 knit stitches. So I know that this must be a knit stitch when I do my next row. Okay, so let's find that space. There it is. Do a full stitch and now knit stitch into the next full stitch and go on down. Oh my cord came loose. Okay, I need some more yarn. 1 second. Oops. I'm almost to the end now. And again, I have 1, 2, 3, 4 knit stitches in my full stitch. So I know this must be a knit stitch when I work into it. Okay. And then I have to increase on this end too with the full stitch. and then return pass. Okay, now let's say that this is my last row, or my last increase row. Let's take a look at what we need to do when I get to the end. All right, so I'm done increasing. I reached the amount that I need for my width, for my bust width. So let's take a look at our stitches here. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 knit stitches, and then 1 full stitch from the previous row. So I know that this must be a purl stitch. So no increasing. I'm going to purl stitch into there. And if I were making a sweater, my ending rows, or my first and last stitches would be next to purl stitches. It's actually kind of hard to talk and crochet at the same time, I realized. I get just too in the zone and cozy, I guess. Okay, so let's take a look at my ending here. Again, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 knit stitches and then this full stitch. So according to the stitch pattern, that next stitch needs to be a purl stitch. Okay, so let's take a look at how we can do our shoulder rows. So this is from a previous recording that I didn't record. All right, so let's say we're working on the right side of our sweater. It's the right side because I'm looking at it, right? So I will just put a stitch marker in here and get my hook. And this is how we're going to do the shoulders. Crochet all the way down. Now, if you end on a purl stitch, like if your stitch marker's on a purl stitch, you insert your hook into the front bar there and then just pull up a loop. But mine is on a knit stitch. So for the shoulder row, you're going to go all the way until your marked stitch. I'm going to insert my hook, pull up a loop. And then I'm going to just return pass as normal. And we just created a new ending stitch for our shoulder row. And then we can take a look at the next row of your shoulder. So this is going to be your new ending row, so you're going to do it exactly how you normally would. Turn it over, find that stitch, that V, insert your hook, pull up a loop, and then return pass. Great. That's your right shoulder. Now say we want to start our left shoulder. We're going to insert our hook in the same way. So just into the front bar, if you have a knit stitch or a purl stitch, it's the same way. And then to start off, you put a slip knot on your hook, like so. Then insert your hook into the front bar, and take this off. Pull up a loop. So you're gonna have 2 loops on your hook, and then you will pull through. So you basically slip into it. And this is your first stitch of your shoulder row because the first loop on your hook is always your first stitch. And then just keep on going down, continuing with the pattern, with a stitch pattern. Okay, return pass. Oh, I was off screen. So I'm at that first stitch that we made and just return pass as normal. If it seems like it's pulling up, don't worry, we'll take care of that later. Okay, and then this is my first stitch, so then continue going down. Just like that. And I'm going to return pass. And now let's say we finished our shoulder row. I'll show you how to single crochet bind off. Of course, before we start our left shoulder on the right side, we'll have to do a single crochet bind off, but I didn't do it on this side, just for the tutorial. And also, we will do a single crochet bind off across here when we are ready to do our collar. Okay, now let's say I completed the amount of shoulder rows that I wanted and I have to do a single crochet bind off. This single crochet bind off is going to be the same for your shoulder rows and when you work across your collar rows. So this is technically my Tunisian crochet collar row, okay? So basically, to work a single crochet bind off, you insert your hook into this stitch as you normally would for the whatever stitch you're working, and then you are going to work a single crochet. So when we purl stitch, we insert into the front bar, right? So insert your hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, and then to finish a single crochet, yarn over, pull through 2 loops. Easy. For knit stitch, we're going to insert our hook in between those 2 bars, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2 for a single crochet. So basically, just single crochet all the way across. Okay, and then we have our purl stitch here. Insert your hook into that front bar and single crochet. And then our last stitch, you insert it in between like you would for a normal ending stitch. Yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2 loops for a single crochet. And then you can fasten off. And you see now that there are no holes. So here's the bind off row. And then here's the row that does not have a bind off. So that is why it is so important to bind off at the end. All right, good luck making your Eloise sweater.